Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, where you learn how to extract your business and personal deep wealth. I'm your host, Jeffrey Feldberg. This podcast is brought to you by Deep Wealth and the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience. When it comes to your business deep wealth, your exit or liquidity event is the most important financial decision of your life. But unfortunately, up to 90% of liquidity events fail. Think about all that time and your hard-earned money wasted. Of the quote-unquote successful liquidity events, most business owners leave 50% to over 100% of the deal value in the buyer's pocket and don't even know it. I should know. I said no to a seven-figure offer and yes to mastering the art and the science of a liquidity event. 2 years later, I said yes to a different buyer with a 9-figure deal. Are you thinking about an exit or liquidity event? Don't become a statistic and make the fatal mistake of believing the skills that built your business are the same ones to sell it. After all, how can you master something you've never done before? Let the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience and the 9-step roadmap of preparation help you capture the best deal instead of any deal. At the end of this episode, take a moment and hear from business owners like you who went through the Deep Wealth Experience. With over a decade of experience living in East Africa, Valerie Bowden has helped some of the most recognized brands in the world do business and investment in Africa. She helped launch Ethiopian Outsourcing Association and works in partnership with the top tech outsourcing companies in Africa. She is the founder of CRDLE, the most diverse B2B marketplace that connects African brands to global customers. Her advice and experience in African countries has been featured on PBS, Huffington Post, NBC News, Yahoo, and the Washington Post. Before launching her career, she backpacked the entire length of Africa by herself. Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, and for all you business owners out there, a rhetorical question. Do you want to create a market disruption? And of course you said yes. Do you want to do social capitalism? Take what we're doing, helping people, making a difference, and take it to the next level? And I'm assuming, of course, you're saying yes. How do you do that? Is it even possible? Is it fact? Is it fiction? That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I promise you're going to be coming out knowing a whole lot more. You're going to be loving what you're hearing. So I'm going to stop there. Valerie, welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. Absolute pleasure to have you with us. And I'm curious, Valerie, before we get going, there's always a story behind the story. What's your story? What got you to where you are today?
Thank you for having me. My story starts when I decided to backpack across Africa. I was 25. I took a one-way flight to Cape Town. I thought I would travel for 6 weeks, and I ended up having such a good time that I traveled for 7 months, 9 days across the entire continent by myself with a tent and a backpack. And that's what got my whole story in business started.
Valerie, that's amazing. So to go to Africa on your own backpacking, how did that come to be? Did you just wake up one day and say, hey, let's do this? It sounds like a good idea. Or was there something to that?
There was definitely something to it. Before my trip, I had done a 3-month volunteer program in Ethiopia, and that was that it can do a lot of damage. And I started to see kind of the dark side of charities that have been really well documented that our aid's not helping. So that part was really enlightening because I was a social work major. But at the same time, because I was in Ethiopia and it was my first time in Africa, I had such a good time. It was so different than what I expected. I loved the food, the people, the culture, the coffee. And so when I went back to the US, I was like, I have to see more African countries. I have to see what the continents, and because of my social work background, I was like, what is working and what's not working? And because I was out of grad school, I didn't have a lot of money. That's what prompted me just to take that one-way flight to South Africa and just think, I'm just going to figure it out. I'm just going to see things. And that's what really started it.
You know, it's amazing. I got to ask you this because here in, let's call it North America, we hear what the media wants us to hear about East Africa, Africa, just the region in general. And it's probably not the entire picture. And we're probably getting more of a negative view than a positive view, if I had to guess. What's really going on there? And I know you just came back stateside very recently. So what's been going on? What should we know? What do you want us to hear?
It's so different than what we know. And because after my backpacking trip, I lived in Ethiopia for 8 years. And so you're right. What the media says is just all the negative. So if you only heard the negative all about the US or European countries, you would think the worst. And that's kind of what we think about the African continent. But all the countries are really different. There's, I think, 20 countries that rank higher on the Global Peace Index than the US. So the safety is there. And it's becoming a huge center for business. And Americans are really missing out because I've seen Europeans and Chinese and Middle Eastern doing business in Africa, but Americans were really behind the game in that area.
And I know this is one of the reasons that you started your company, CRDLE, CRDLE. And for the listeners, we'll have all this in the show notes. You can check it out. So what was the auspices for starting CRDLE? How did that happen? What was that day where you said, you know what, I'm going to do this?
It's been in the making for a while because when I was backpacking the continent, I went through 13 countries and I was stopping by charities, nonprofits, schools, tech hubs, businesses. And what I found is what's working is creating good jobs. And that's what's creating a sustainable impact out of poverty. And it's definitely the more, I would say, ethical and enlightened approach to working in the countries. And so when I was working in Ethiopia, I was working strictly with products. So I'd help farmers find buyers or leather craftsmanship, like find stores to sell to. And then right before COVID hit, I started getting into outsourcing. And then COVID hit and everything boomed in a positive way because suddenly companies around the world were open to remote workers. And that kind of showed me there's so much potential in Africa with the developers and the virtual assistants. And you don't think about the continent as a tech outsourcing hub, but it's quickly becoming that. So when I moved back to the US, I was like, I'm going to start CRDLE and I'm just going to promote why we should do bigger and better business on the continent.
Yeah, what a terrific origin story and narrative. And so help me out with this because I'm probably not alone. So when I think of Ethiopia, when I think of East Africa, just in general, tech and virtual assistants isn't necessarily what comes to mind. I'm thinking more kinds of products and goods and coffee as an example, some of the things that we're talking offline. So what's been going on there from a technology side of things and the people behind that?
Yes. So great question. So I think as the Philippines and India, they're becoming a little bit more saturated in outsourcing. And so that's really opened up a space for other emerging countries to do well in this. And Africa has 1 billion people, the youngest population. And so there's all these really young, fresh graduates that speak great English, have good accents. And countries like Ethiopia, you're right, you don't think about it as a tech outsourcing hub, but already McDonald's, Intel, Charles Schwab, MasterCard, all of these Fortune 500 companies are already outsourcing to the continent. It's just not well known. But there's certainly a lot of call centers and remote teams starting there and doing really well.
And in those areas, again, when I think of Africa or Ethiopia, East Africa, that whole region, again, the media. So I'm thinking, okay, well, do they have power all the time? Is the internet going to be there? Are they going to have the right kinds of computers and equipment to do what we're doing here? How would you respond to that?
Those are valid concerns. One of the advantages, we work with both outsourcing companies and freelancers. So outsourcing companies are really good when you want to do, if you have a big team, because they do have those like built-in power backups, inverters, and things that you need. And the internet is good. Some countries in Africa actually have faster Wi-Fi than the US, like Madagascar's ranks really high for that. When we work with freelancers who are often like the virtual assistants that we place, we either have to pay them to work out of co-working space, or we just make sure that they have some really good battery packs that they can swap in and out if power goes out. So it's definitely a concern, but it's one that people are already navigating well.
Wow. So it sounds like really, and correct me if I'm on base or off base with this, you're like a matchmaker, it sounds like. So I'm a US-based business, and if I want to do some ethical kinds of sourcing, I don't know, with tea or coffee, you can do that. I know leather is one of the things that you're doing as well. But then on the people side, you can be the matchmaker as well. Am I getting that right?
Yes, exactly. And probably 80% of our work is with the talent side. And so African countries are really different and they each have their own strengths. So if you want someone that has American leaning accents, I would say Ethiopia is great. If you want some really affordable young talent, Rwanda is becoming really prominent. If you want French, then you go to a French speaking country. So every country has their own kind of advantages. And so we kind of help companies walk through what they need. And then we match them with BPO companies and freelancers that meet their criteria.
Got it. And so how would it work, Valerie? So I'm US based. I hear this podcast. Okay, this sounds interesting. I'm going to contact you. What's your process like? Can you walk us through that?
So we always start with a discovery call to make sure people understand what is it like to outsource to Africa, and we understand what their needs are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put it out into our network, and BPO companies and outsourcing companies and freelancers who meet the criteria send us their resumes, and then we shortlist it for the candidate. And then we usually set up a group interview. So the client gets to speak to people who work at an outsourcing company as well as freelancers from all over the continent. And then they choose who works best. And then after that, it's a month-by-month contract, but nobody's locked in to anything long-term.
And Valerie, do you handle the payments? So as a US-based company, am I paying your company and you in turn are paying the talent?
That's how most of our clients prefer it, because a lot of them really don't want to deal with foreign labor laws. And so as a US-based company, we take that on. There are, for some companies who are bigger and they're looking at 100 seats or a large volume, then sometimes the direct approach is better. And then we just kind of help match fit that. We stay in for a few months, make sure the onboarding goes well, and then we back out. So we're quite flexible.
Got it. And, I know not just with what you're doing in East Africa, in general with the outsourcing industry, a lot of myths are there. And one of the myths is, well, if I'm outsourcing, I'm not supporting Americans and I'm taking jobs away from the country. And research tends to show otherwise. And in some cases, yes, that's happening. But in a lot of cases, it's for positions that perhaps we don't want to do here and can't find the talent here. Can you speak to that for our listeners just to put them at ease with that?
Yes, I think that's great. And we were really inspired by the 15% pledge. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but it's a call to action for retail stores to take on 15% of Black-owned businesses' products, because African Americans make up 15% of the population in the US. And so we took that model and we said, you know what, Africa makes up 16% of the world population. So what would that look like if 16% of your remote jobs were filled by African talent? And that gives you lots of priority for US or your local country's team. That way you're supporting local jobs. But 16% of the jobs really can be filled by, African teams. And that's going to give you a great cost saving because the talent is more affordable. It also helps your DE&I because you're adding more diversity. And a lot of companies will tie it into their corporate social responsibility as well and call it a digital transformation. And so I think that's a good balance between you're getting some support, it's affordable, there's some clear business advantages, but you're also prioritizing local jobs as well.
Yeah, thank you for expanding that. And so for our listeners, what does it mean? So when they're working with someone who's now part of the remote team somewhere in East Africa, what does that mean for that person's life in East Africa? How are we helping to make a change? I mean, the business is profiting from it, but how are the people profiting? Can you share with us?
Yes, I think anybody understands that when you get out of college and there's no good jobs, that is so discouraging. Whether you're American or Ethiopian, college grads want jobs and there's so much good talent there. And so what you're doing is you're just helping African talent access the global talent economy, and you're giving them an opportunity to use their skills and build a meaningful career. And for them, they make more money. There's not a lot of local opportunities. And my favorite thing is when we place someone, I always get a text that is, I just doubled my salary because of you. I'm taking my mom out shopping. I'm now paying for my brother to go to a better school. And so there's definitely, the social impact of what happens when people have good paying jobs.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And again, for our listeners, perhaps you can talk about how the exchange rate, so the US dollar relative to whatever the local currency is going to be, we're not exploiting people. We are taking advantage. We're leveraging the differences in exchange rates to make a huge difference in people's lives.
Yes, exactly. So when I lived in Ethiopia, the cost of living was significantly lower. When I moved to Pittsburgh, my rent is 10 times higher here in the US than it was in Ethiopia. So the advantage is you can pay people really well because their cost of living is lower. And because of Upworks and the fact that people can get good jobs, it does not help you to pay the lowest anyways. Because if you pay super, super low, they will go on and get other jobs and other side hustles. And so you're paying lower, but you're still not paying dirt cheap prices because in today's global world, that doesn't work anymore for anyone.
And so in terms of, and I know it's tough because Jeffrey, it depends on the company, it depends on the position, it depends on the scope of what's being done. But generally speaking, let's say for a virtual assistant, as an example, what would that look like on a monthly basis, dollar-wise?
It depends, again, like you said, with the different country, different experience, but I would say a virtual assistant is anywhere from maybe 8 to 14 an hour. And maybe a cold caller is around, let's say, $2,000 a month. And a developer can be anywhere from like 1,500 to 3,000 a month, depending on experience. And that's a big range. So it's definitely more affordable. But again, we work with a lot of like governments and ICT parks and things like that. And African countries don't want to be known for dirt cheap prices. They want to be premier talent. And so they are good prices, definitely more affordable, but you have to pay people well to get good results.
And so it sounds like it's not going to be, like you say, the lowest of the lows. It's not going to be the highest of the highs. It's ethical, it's fair, it's competitive. And you're getting someone who's smart and who's hardworking.
Very talented, very capable for the job. And just like, it's a great part of your team. I know before we hopped on this, we were talking about the different values from when I lived in Ethiopia versus here. And you're adding people to your team who do have different values, and they're things that you need as an American company or an international company. It just adds to your culture and your diversity in a very positive way.
And so speaking of diversity, that's a big topic now, and we're hearing more about this. And Valerie, the challenge typically has been when I speak with companies and business owners, yeah, Jeffrey, we're signed up for that, but I can't fill the seats. I can't find people who I can check the boxes of what we're looking for. Nothing to do with their race or background or anything else. It's simply, okay, do they have what we're looking for? So help us on that side, Valerie, how through what you're doing with Cradle, on the diversity side, we can do what we want to do and expand into those areas.
Right. I hear that a lot. I have a lot of friends who are in the DE&I space, and they hear that a lot as well. I mean, I can confidently say that we definitely have jobs that would fit any corporation's needs, because from data entry to customer service to developers, we are super happy to help people source the talent that they need. And I would say the biggest theme is that sometimes you do have to change policies to include diverse candidates. And so what happens is we have a lot of companies who will say, we only hire in the US, we can't hire foreign workers. And that's when we say, but you probably are working with other consultants or contractors in the US. And so we set it up in the same way. So you can hire us as the contractor or consultant, but the talent really is based overseas. And for all you know, your other consultants could be overseas and you wouldn't know. Like they could be traveling, there could be so many other things. So I think a lot of it is talent is there, and sometimes it is about changing policies to make it work.
And Valerie, you said something interesting, because the talent that you're bringing on board, they are diverse and they have different backgrounds that they can give different insights to the business, help us become better. Any success story and from looking back of what you've been doing that you can share with us of how, hey, yeah, once this company brought on these people, here's what happened?
I think my favorite part is we work with a lot of different companies, but when it comes to nonprofits or social impact companies, to me, it doesn't make sense to build a school in that community or to do projects in Ethiopia or Uganda if you're not hiring talent from that country. So my favorite success stories are when impact-oriented companies hire, and then their projects are better because they actually have locals working on it. And it's not just a bunch of Americans saying, this is how we should build the wells or donate their shoe boxes. You actually have people from the countries who are giving their advice as well. And then that's twofold as far as the impact goes.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And then Valerie, on the flip side, nothing's ever perfect. And I would imagine there's some adjustments. So when I'm working with someone from Ethiopia in a remote role, what do I need to know? What perhaps needs to change, or what may be in the beginning, I don't want to say stumbling blocks, but things I need to adapt, change, incorporate to make it work?
That's a good question. We did have some challenges in the beginning because I feel like American companies are maybe more time sensitive than some of our Ethiopians were. And so they'd roll into the meeting a few minutes late, and there was some cultural differences. And so on our end, we have like a half-day program that we put all of our candidates through that goes over these cultural differences, showing up on time, converting the time zones correctly, those kind of things that we did notice over and over. And so we try to catch a lot of these problems before a candidate is placed.
And speaking of time zones, and again, I suppose it depends on where you're going to be and what that's looking like, but from a time zone perspective, in Ethiopia as an example, what's a differential?
So Ethiopians are about 7 or 8 hours behind us in time zones, but most of our talent will work whatever hours the client is working. So a lot of them are working US time zone. And if they are working US time zone, then we do specifically work usually with an outsourcing company that can give them a ride home at the end of the night, because that's 1 a.m. their time. And so we have to set that up on the back end. But a lot of our talent is also going to grad school during the day. So they really prefer the US time zone. And so, yeah, it is something to think about. But there's so many people who want jobs that the time is like the least of their concern and they make it work.
So whether it's midnight in Ethiopia, but it's 8 a.m. New York time, the talent is working around our schedule and being there for when we need them there.
Exactly. And some clients actually prefer more of a split shift. And so they'll work half Ethiopian hours, half American hours. And the beauty of that is that when the US team is clocking out, they can put on, okay, do this. And then it's ready by 9 a.m. their time, because the Ethiopians start 4 hours early. You can do it different ways, but I think that's like the least of people's concern is it's so easy to work out.
I know, Valerie, you read my mind. I mean, the power of, okay, lights out here. If we're calling it a day, everyone's heading off as they should. But we have our team it's now their regular time. They're up, they're at them. We're going to come back. And I would imagine the productivity from that perspective just goes through the roof at that point.
Yeah, because you're working, it's like an 18-hour work cycle. Then for you, there's so much work being done. And another advantage also is if you're an American company, but you're trying to service Europeans, then because your hours are closer to African hours, you can actually have them work their time zone, and then they're servicing your European clients. So whether that's with developer work or just customer service, you're able to add people to get more hours done.
And Valerie, from that perspective, and again, I'm going to ask a question and you can say, well, Jeffrey, look, it really depends. There is no typical or average. On the talent side, is there one position that you find you're helping to match people up with more than others?
I think we do the most virtual assistants. And part of that is just because we work with a lot of smaller businesses and they just need that support or like an administrative assistant. When it comes to bigger companies, there's so much bureaucracy and we have to get the HR team, the legal team, we have to get everybody to say yes. So those take a lot longer. And then those are the companies who want developers or customer service. And so it's a bigger amount of people. So the virtual assistants we can place faster because it's just more of an agile position to place.
Terrific. So I'm a business owner. I want to take some things off my plate, spend my time where I should be spending my time. I could work with you, Valerie, you and the team, help me find a virtual assistant. What would you say to our listeners who are going to be bringing on a VA for the first time, never done it before? What should they be thinking about? What should they do? What shouldn't they do?
That's a good point. So my favorite client is the one that comes in with their SOPs already written down. And so they have step-by-step directions. They have a video tutorial on how they want to do things. And it's really more about like the busy and repetitive task being replaced by someone who can do them. So I think it's all about those really clear guidelines, clear expectations, and making it easy for someone to take over by showing them how to do it.
So here at Deep Wealth, that's one of the 4 points of clarity, which we should all be doing. The documentation of our standard operating procedures, our KPIs, it's written or it's in video, makes it very easy to train and onboard people.
Yeah, it's really important because sometimes we have clients who I think they just expect the virtual assistant to figure it out on their own. And that's really hard for anyone to do, especially if it's someone who's overseas and they're not in your office with you. So the most successful placements are those that are really clear on what needs to be done and they have the time estimates and everything, like you said, is documented. And then that works so well. Then it's just such an easy placement.
And again, I want to chip away some of the myths that are out there, Valerie. And, at one point in time with the whole outsourcing movement, whatever country it was an English-speaking country, but either they didn't get the nuances of being in America, and that's hard. It doesn't matter what school you go to or, how well educated you are. If you don't live in that country, you can miss some of the nuances. Or they found that the accent, even though they spoke English, was a little bit hard to understand. I know you touched on the accent a little bit earlier, but to put our listeners at ease, so what's that like? We're bringing somebody on from Ethiopia as an example, or East Africa, wherever it may be, to now interface, even be forward-facing with clients or even our internal team. Anything we should be concerned about or easy peasy? What's going on?
Yes, it's a valid concern for people who want an 100% American accent because they're customer facing or doing cold calling. I really have only found success in Ethiopia. We've tried to find
Really?
candidates in the other countries. Yeah, Ethiopians have the best accents. And so it is important. We have to take that into consideration. If you just want a virtual assistant that probably has more international experience and you want good English, but they're just working with you, then we'll play someone with like Uganda or Rwanda because they have more international companies in their country. So they've had more international exposure, but they probably wouldn't do well, cold calling. There's obviously exceptions to that, but yeah, so it's something to take into consideration. And I would say that the young graduates that I know and have worked with, they're almost so Americanized. Like the amount of Hollywood movies that they have seen and the amount of clients that they've worked with, I think they do really well. I think the culture is more similar. And yeah, we haven't had that issue.
And Valerie, it sounds like you take the guesswork out of it. So if I'm going to become a client, you and I speak, we have this meeting, you're doing an assessment. Okay, what does Jeffrey need? Where are the skill sets that I know of that could best check the boxes to not only have it done, but have it done successfully? And so you're going to save me time and effort in that way.
Yes, exactly. And that's also, I guess, I would say why there's not as many cultural issues is because we are kind of always there in the background. So if there is an issue, we're like quick to hop on it. Or if we're working with an outsourcing company, a lot of them have US founders or a US partner, or they're just used to US clients. So they already kind of know that. We're really like bespoke. So you don't just go on to our website and say what you want. We just match you. Like we do a whole thing where we're talking to you, we're meeting your team, we know what you want. We do our own shortlisting on our side. And my favorite part is we do like a Zoom call where we call the candidates in and you interview them one by one and you can see them side by side. And it is so clear who the client likes. It's really obvious to see who's the good fit. And we're on that call with you. And so we're also saying, I like that person. You're right. That person did not do well. And so we're there the whole time. And it's a really fun process.
And it sounds like this whole process, because people talk the talk, but walking it is sometimes challenging. Even best of intentions, we don't know how to do it. So it sounds like here we can really do all the things. Help the business, solve our problems, reach out to a country that is looking for quality jobs, change the standard of living for the better for a particular individual or a group of individuals with that. And so I'm wondering, from when you started Cradle to where we are today, and as you look out 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, what kind of changes for the better are you seeing?
We're seeing more people open to African talents, more people open to remote positions. I think that's something that COVID started that's going on. But our overall mission is to really inspire bigger and better business. And so what we want to do is really show businesses that African countries, they're not what you think they are. And my end goal is to get you such good talent that you want to like go on a vacation in that country afterwards because you're so impressed, and like to really help change the way Americans are working and thinking about the continent. And so 2 years from now, if we can be part of a movement that's changing that, I would be really excited about it.
And Valerie, what's nice about this, and you can tell me if you agree or not, this isn't like what you had referenced earlier just when we began. This is not like a charity where you write a check, you have no idea what's going to go on. We hear all these horror stories. This is helping our business. It's solving a problem, making our lives easier, but it's a win-win because we can see the difference, we can see the change real time on a day-over-day basis. Would you agree with that?
100%. In fact, I would say don't even donate to African charities unless you know them so well, because after a decade on the continent, even the most well-known ones are so bad on the back end. I could tell you so many horror stories, which I won't, but when you're hiring someone from the continent, you are creating the social impact that you'd want. You are giving someone a job so that they have money, so that they can provide for their kids and doing all of that. But because it is a business proposition, it's sustainable. So you are saving money because it does cost less. You are adding to your diversity. You are helping your CSR. You are getting better hours and good English speakers. So it's sustainable and it does make an impact.
And Valerie, I'll throw this out there. And again, it's me probably being just like so many of us. We just see what the media wants us to see. Some of the countries that you've mentioned, when I hear the name, war-torn images flash across my mind. And I'm thinking to myself, do they even have the infrastructure? Because all I see in the media are very basic villagers and they're, in a war-torn area. And now we're talking technology, we're talking corporate America. And I'm thinking, is there even a fit here? How does that work? So can you dispel some more myths, maybe for me and the listeners?
Well, one thing I always like to say is, would you go to a country where one person is murdered every 4 minutes? No, right? But that is like the FBI statistics for the United States. if you look at our own US statistics, it is super scary and it is super shocking. And so if you think about it in that light, that we've only heard those super scary statistics, and when you actually get to see the country in a holistic way, that there's a lot of good that also balances out. So yes, so many African countries have had struggles in the past, but most of them have been 20, 30 years ago. And even countries like Rwanda, which have a genocide in the past, I would say Rwanda is one of the best countries in Africa to work with. Their government is so good. The country is so clean. The people are so skilled. It's so affordable. And it's like exactly the opposite of what you would picture. So yeah, the African countries are really different than what we know about as Americans.
So really, it's following your very courageous lead of coming in with an open mind. Forget what we've seen or believe or heard. It's a new day. It's a new era, and one for the better.
Exactly. And that's why we also place people on 30-day contracts, because I know that people have those fears and worries. And so we say, like, you can cancel anytime the first month. No worries. After that 30-day written notice. And let me tell you, like, our retention rate is like 98% with clients. And so it's super, super rare that we don't have a good fit. And I think that tells you a lot of what you need to know, is that taking the first step is always the scariest in whatever you're doing. And then once you get going, you realize it's not that bad. It's not that different. And then you realize, like, people are just the same everywhere around the world, you know?
And Valerie, what I love about your story of what you're enabling us to do, so we donate to a charity because we have good intentions, but you're saying, hey, in a different way, become your own charity that has a productive end result. And it really isn't charity, because charity to us may sound good, but to other people who are on the opposite end of it, it could be very demeaning. And so here we're becoming enablers of our own, working with you, finding the talent, training them for our positions, what needs to be done. It's a win-win.
Exactly. Yep. And let me tell you, like, I live there and nobody wants charity. Nobody wants to not be able to afford clothes or shoes for their kids. They want to work and they're talented. They just don't have access to the opportunities. And because of the remote world these days and technology, we finally have access to what big companies have always done, which is outsource. And now even small businesses can do that. And it does have, the total win you'd want on the impact side, but also the business proposition is there.
So we're changing lives, we're giving dignity, we're solving our business problems together collectively. We're just doing it globally.
Yep, exactly.
What a great news story that is.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting.
And so, Valerie, as we begin to wrap up, one quick question for you. So coming out of today's episode, a business owner is thinking of some kind of outsourcing, whether it's on the talent side or perhaps on a matchmaking for some kind of ethically sourced product or item. What could be one action that they could take today before this episode finishes, before they go into that next meeting, that phone call, that email, to begin that journey?
I would say to reach out to our team and schedule a discovery call. I have on calls all day long with people all over the world, and I can tell them very easily if it's good fit or not. And so people can reach us at our website or on my personal LinkedIn, and I'm happy to walk people through what it would look like if it's possible, if it's not. And I think that's a good first step, just to get more information from someone who's been based there.
Terrific. And again, for our listeners, this will all be in the show notes. It'll be a point and click. Won't get any easier than that. And so, Valerie, I mean, we can go on of how you're changing lives, how you're changing literally the social fabric of society, and you're putting American businesses together with local talent, which is incredible. And that's just a wonderful story. That said, though, we need to start wrapping up, for better or for worse. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to set this up. It's a fun question, a little bit of a thought experiment. So think of the movie Back to the Future. And in the movie, you have that magical DeLorean car that can go to any point in time. So Valerie, the fun part is it's tomorrow morning. You look outside your window and there it is. Not only is the DeLorean car curbside, door is open, waiting for you to hop on in. So you hop in and you can now go to any point in your life. Valerie, as a young child, teenager, whatever point in time that would be, what are you telling your younger self, Valerie, in terms of, hey, Valerie, here's some life wisdom or some life lessons, or do this, but don't do that? What would that sound like?
That's a good question. I would tell myself to enjoy the journey more. I think that's something I learned when I was backpacking, that it is the journey that matters more. And I wish I would have learned that lesson earlier. And I think I would just tell myself to relax. Like, things always work out, even when you can't figure it out. And even when it looks like all the puzzle pieces are a mess, the puzzle pieces eventually come together. So just to relax and enjoy the ride.
Awesome. Terrific advice. Thank you for that. And Valerie, again, we're going to have this for our listeners in the show notes. I know you mentioned to book a call with you or the team, or they have questions. So where would be the best place online? Again, we'll have all these links in the show notes, but what would that be for you?
People can go to our website, cradle.com, or I am on LinkedIn all day long talking to people. And so even just my personal LinkedIn, Valerie Bowden, is a great way to just message me and get a hold of me personally really fast.
Okay, terrific. And again, for listeners, it'll be there. It can't get any easier. Well, Valerie, it's official. This is a wrap. I want to thank you for paying it forward, for educating us, enlightening us, and showing us, hey, there's a whole new world out there, and we can be a part of it to really make a difference. And as we wrap this up, Valerie, as we say here at Deep Wealth, please continue to thrive and prosper and stay healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Deep Wealth experience was definitely a game changer for me.
This course is one of the best investments you will ever make, because you will get an ROI of 100 times that. Anybody who doesn't go through it will lose millions.
If you don't have time for this program, you'll never have time for a successful liquidity.
I mean, it was the best value of any business course I've ever taken. The money was very well spent.
Compared to when we first began, today I feel better prepared, but in some respects, maybe less prepared, not because of the course, but because the course brought to light so many things that I thought we were on top of that we need to fix.
I 100% believe there's never a great time for a business owner to allocate extra hours into his or her week or day. So it's an investment that will yield results today. I thought I will reap the benefit of this program in 3 to 5 years down the road. But as soon as I stepped forward into the program, my mind changed immediately.
There was so much value in the experience that the time I invested paid back so much for the energy that was expended.
The Deep Wealth experience compared to other programs is the top. What we learned is very practical. Sometimes you learn stuff that is great to learn, but you never use it. The stuff we learned from Deep Wealth experience, I believe is going to benefit us both.
I've done an executive MBA. I've worked for billion-dollar companies before. I've worked for smaller companies before I started my business. I've been running my business successfully now for getting close to a decade. We're on a growth trajectory. Reflecting back on the Deep Wealth, I knew less than 10% what I know now. Maybe close to 1% even.
Hands down, the best program in which I've ever participated. And we've done a lot of different things over the years. We've been in other mastermind groups, gone to many seminars, workshops, conferences, retreats, read books. This was so different. I haven't had an experience that's anything close to this in all the years that we've been at this. It's 5-star, A+.
I would highly recommend it to any super busy business owner out there. And Deep Wealth is an accurate name for it. This program leads to deeper wealth and happier wealth, not just deeper wealth. I don't think there's a dollar value that could be associated with such an experience and knowledge that could be applied today and forever.
Are you leaving millions on the table? Please visit www.deepwealth.com/success to learn more. If you're not on my email list, you'll want to be. Sign up at www.deepwealth.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, if it added value, if you walked away with some new insights and strategies, please leave a review on your favorite podcast channel. Reviews help us reach new listeners, grow the show, and continue to create content that you'll enjoy. And as we wrap up this episode, as always, please stay healthy and safe.